The rhythm of a Taurus life has always felt to me like a warm kitchen, a pot simmering gently over low heat for hours. No one rushes it. Everything unfolds in. No one rushes it. Everything unfolds in its own way. Slow, steady, giving the flavors time to sink deep into every layer. And then, at some point, you begin to notice the flame beneath the pot feels a little stronger. No one touched the knob. No one gave a signal. But things start to boil faster than you expected. A phone call comes earlier than you thought you were ready for. An opportunity opens while you're still weighing your next steps. An offer lands, and you pause for a few seconds before answering because your heart is beating just a little quicker than usual. It isn't loud. It isn't some dramatic upheaval that turns everything upside down. It feels more like a quiet shift in the wind on an otherwise calm afternoon. You don't see it arrive, but the subtle movement in your hair tells you something is changing. Taurus is used to its own pace, used to moving forward one careful step at a time, planting each foot firmly before lifting the next. So when life begins to accelerate, the first response might not be excitement. It might be hesitation. A quiet thought rising up. Am I ready for this? That question doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from care, from the habit of wanting to do things well, thoroughly, without rushing. Taurus doesn't trust results that arrive too fast without a foundation. And yet, sometimes the foundation has been built for so long, you no longer recognize how solid it has become. I've experienced this in a very ordinary way. A small project I nurtured for months, step by step, without telling many people. At first, it was just an idea scribbled in a notebook. Then small pieces came together. No pressure, no one pushing. One day, it started receiving more attention than I expected. Collaboration offers came in one after another. Positive feedback showed up more frequently. I had assumed it would take much longer before anything truly moved, but the movement was already there. I just hadn't noticed it yet. It felt a bit like standing on one of those moving walkways at the airport. You step on intending to stroll slowly, and suddenly, you're being carried forward faster than you imagined. There's nothing dangerous about it. You just have to adjust your stride. For Taurus, acceleration doesn't have to mean a dramatic leap. Sometimes it's simply the narrowing of space between preparation and reality. Things that once lived only in thought, in plans, begin to take clearer shape. Conversations that used to be hypothetical become real invitations. That moment can make you pause, like standing before a door whose frame you built yourself over many years, and now your hand is resting on the handle. Part of you wants to double-check everything. Is it sturdy enough? Did I overlook anything? Another part whispers. Maybe you've walked far enough to trust what you've built. The energy of Taurus, as I've come to understand it, isn't explosive. It accumulates, like soil enriched, season after season. No one sees each grain being added, but over time the earth grows deeper, more fertile. When life speeds up, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to run, but sometimes it simply means maintaining balance, keeping your breath steady, keeping your thoughts grounded, allowing the movement without losing the calm that has always belonged to you. Maybe this acceleration isn't here to turn you into someone else. Maybe it's simply revealing that the version of you standing here now is stronger, more mature than you once believed. And when you find yourself in the middle of this quickening rhythm, instead of asking, "Am I moving fast enough?" perhaps a softer question is enough. Am I ready to trust what I've been building all this time? The answer, in its own way, tends to arrive gently, much like the Taurus pace itself. Slow, steady, and never truly standing still. Those quiet movements are like underground streams beneath the soil. No one sees them. No one hears them flowing. And yet, day after day, they keep moving, finding their way, feeding the roots above. Taurus tends to live like that. No need to announce to the world what's being prepared, just quietly doing the work, quietly refining, quietly accumulating, seeds resting beneath the soil. Taurus rarely speaks loudly about what's taking shape inside. Intentions are planted the way a farmer presses seeds into the earth, without display, without rushing, hands covered in soil, fingernails carrying dust, and in the eyes, a particular kind of focus, a confidence that doesn't need volume. There have likely been moments when you wondered, am I moving too slowly? That question doesn't come from lack of ability. It often comes from looking around and seeing others run faster, speak louder, reach milestones sooner. In those moments, Boiser rushes, and neither does a seed. Seeds rushes, and neither does a seed. Seeds need time to crack open. They need darkness to grow roots strong enough before they dare reach toward light. If you pull a sprout up too early just to prove it's growing, you may damage the very roots you were trying to protect. Taurus seems to understand that instinctively. You may not always have the language for it, but you can feel when something isn't ready to be shown yet. That slowness is sometimes mistaken for hesitation. From the outside, it can look like delay, but inside, it's an assembly process, pieces being aligned carefully into place. And then one day, movement becomes more visible. A conversation that seemed casual opens an unexpected door. A skill you practiced quietly turns out to be exactly what someone else is searching for. An idea that once lived only in your thoughts now finds its way onto a table, spoken aloud, taken seriously. You may feel surprised, not because it appeared, but because it appeared right when you had finally begun to believe you were ready to receive it. In truth, nothing here is sudden in an absolute sense. The seeds were planted long ago. We just don't always witness the roots pushing deeper into the soil, drawing water, finding nutrients. Most growth happens beneath the surface, far from stage lights. The energy of Taurus, as I've come to experience it, feels like a field after the rain. From a distance, it looks calm, almost unchanged. But beneath the surface, our roots are gripping more tightly than before. When the first green shoot finally breaks through the earth, people notice that moment. They see the emergence. Few pause to consider how long it took for that quiet preparation to unfold. So when movement becomes clearer, it may not actually be something new. It may simply be what has been forming all along finally touching the light. Not loud, not dramatic, just timely. That moment doesn't require a grand celebration. It feels more like opening a window and realizing the quality of light has shifted. You didn't hear the sunrise, but you know the day has turned. There's a subtle lightness in your chest, as if something inside has finally found its path. And perhaps the most beautiful part isn't the result becoming visible. So it's that you were patient enough not to dig up your own seeds halfway through. You trusted the process even when no one else could see it. Within that quiet patience, there's a soft kind of strength. No need to prove, no need to compete, just tending your own ground. Because when the roots grow deep enough, the tree can welcome the wind without fear of being uprooted. But when the wind truly blows hard, the leaves still tremble. And that's when you begin to feel more clearly the quiet collision between the deeply patient part of you and the rhythm outside that's beginning to move faster. The tension between patience and speed. There's something almost strange about it. When results begin appearing faster than you're used to, your first feeling may not be joy, but it can feel like standing in a room where the door has just been opened wide. Light floods in, and your eyes need a few seconds to adjust. You're used to managing the pace, used to waiting until something is fully ripe before you reach for it. You like knowing exactly where you are in the journey. You like steps that can be measured. Certainty feels safe. It's like arranging your own living room by hand, knowing exactly where every chair and table belongs. So when the distance between preparation and experience suddenly shortens, it can feel as though someone quietly moved a few pieces without telling you. Not in a negative way, just unfamiliar. Opportunities arrive while you're still thinking you need more time. Invitations show up before every detail feels perfectly finished. One part of you wants to say, or wait, I'm not ready yet. Another part whispers softly, actually, I've already come a long way. That awkwardness isn't weakness. It's often a sign that growth is shifting into a new phase, like lifting the same comfortable weight at the gym for months. Then one day your trainer places something heavier in front of you. You're not sure you can lift it, but your muscles have been strengthening quietly all along. Taurus energy prefers stability before movement, and there's something beautiful about that. Yet sometimes, that very stability is what causes things to begin moving faster. When the foundation is solid enough, doors tend to open sooner than expected. In moments like these, you don't need to become someone else. You don't need to chase anyone else's tempo. You may only need to shift the way you respond. Like instead of evaluating every possible risk before stepping forward, you might allow yourself to take one small step and simply see what unfolds. The image of a highway opening ahead can be intimidating. The old road may be narrow, but it's familiar. You know every curve, every bump. The highway feels wider, faster, less contained, but you don't have to press the gas pedal harder just to prove something. You only need to avoid braking out of fear. Keep your hands steady on the wheel. Take a slow breath. Allow yourself to experience the new rhythm without losing your natural calm. Speed, at times, isn't there to push you ahead of others. It may simply be a reminder that you're no longer standing where you used to. You've traveled far enough that the scenery has begun to change. And within that change, what truly matters isn't whether you can control everything. It's whether you can continue trusting yourself. Trusting that those quiet months of accumulation were never wasted. Trusting that you can live in a faster rhythm without losing the steadiness of your heart. The meeting between patience and speed doesn't have to be a battle. It can become a kind of dance. One slow step, one quicker one, a deep breath, followed by a longer exhale. And perhaps, when you allow yourself to lean into this new movement, you begin to realize that your patience hasn't disappeared. It's still there, standing behind you like a sturdy trunk, steady and grounded, so that you can let your leaves reach into the wind. And when the leaves truly meet the wind, the next sound isn't applause, it's quiet. A very personal stillness, as if you're standing in your own familiar room, yet somehow every object looks slightly different. When a goal stops being just an idea, things that once lived on paper, in notebooks, in late nights when you sat alone thinking, they're no longer just words. They have shape now. They have sound. People say their names in conversations. There are scheduled meetings, numbers, eyes waiting for your response. The feeling is real, and a little fragile at the same time. I remember watching a Taurus friend when his project officially launched. For years, he spoke about it as something small, something he might do someday. No one imagined it would become a meaningful part of his work so soon. And when it finally took form, the first thing he did wasn't celebrate. He sat quietly for a long while. So he looked at the plan in front of him as if he were getting reacquainted with an old friend who had returned in a new shape. Maybe that's a moment many Taurus souls recognize. When something once protected in the safe space of imagination steps into the light, it's no longer just a dream. It asks you to step forward too, to become responsible for it. The distance between I want and I have suddenly narrows, and that distance used to be where you could revise, delay, adjust. When it disappears, you're standing inside something vivid and alive. That pause doesn't come from fear. It's more like holding the key to a house you built with your own hands. You imagined it for years, but when the door finally opens, the space inside asks you to breathe for a moment. And in that moment, you begin looking back at the earlier version of yourself, the one who sat alone writing the first lines, weighing each step, wondering if it was too far-fetched. You start to realize you've changed more than you thought, not in some dramatic transformation, more like quiet maturity, like a tree trunk thickening year by year. No one sees each ring forming, but when you touch it, you know it's stronger. When a goal becomes real, you're no longer observing from the outside. You're inside it, You can feel its heartbeat, its breath, and you understand that anything meaningful comes with responsibility. But that responsibility, if you look closely, isn't a burden. It's more like a coat that fits you better than anything you've worn before. At first, it may feel slightly heavy, but after a few steps, you realize it was tailored to your exact size. The shift from idea to reality rarely makes a dramatic entrance. It can happen on an ordinary afternoon, in the middle of familiar routines, yet inside, you know something has moved. You're no longer saying, someday. You're living in that day. And what makes this moment beautiful isn't that it's perfect. It's that you arrived here at your own pace. No borrowing, no racing. When you look back, you may even smile at the version of yourself who once doubted, the one who thought you were too slow, not enough. Standing now in the middle of something taking shape, you can see clearly. That slowness was never weakness. It was how you built something sturdy enough to last. And when a goal stops being just an idea, when it has its own shape and sound, perhaps what matters most isn't whether you're flawless, but whether you're willing to step further into this new space with the calm that has always been yours. Because deep inside, the roots are still there, and the leaves, once they've grown used to the wind, can rise a little higher, not to prove anything, but simply to feel how wide the sky truly is. When your leaves have touched the wind long enough, you begin to realize the sky isn't threatening. It's simply wider than you once imagined, and that wideness doesn't demand that you fly. It only offers more room to breathe a little deeper. Adapting doesn't mean losing yourself. Acceleration doesn't require you to change your nature. Taurus is still Taurus, still drawn to certainty, still needing solid ground beneath your feet. You still prefer what can be touched, what can be tested through lived experience. You still believe in laying one brick at a time instead of suspending yourself on vague promises. But when the house you've been building for years is finally complete, the next step isn't to keep adding walls. It isn't reinforcing what's already strong. It may be learning how to live inside the larger space you created. And sometimes, that's harder than the building itself. When everything is still in preparation, your task is clear. Keep working. But once something takes shape, the task shifts. Now it becomes about allowing yourself to enjoy it, to accept it, to walk into that expansion without feeling like you're losing your stability. I once heard a Taurus say he felt unsettled when things began going smoothly. He was used to striving, used to waiting. When doors started opening one after another, he almost wanted to close a few, just to feel he could control the pace. That feeling is deeply human. When you've grown comfortable with a slower rhythm, change can make you wonder, am I drifting away from who I am? But your essence isn't defined by speed. It's defined by how you place your feet on the ground. You can move a little faster without losing your composure. You can say, all right, instead of, let me think about it, without betraying yourself. Adapting may simply mean allowing yourself to receive a little more, like moving from a small room into a larger one. At first, it might feel empty. You walk around, touch the walls, open the windows, listen to the echo of your own footsteps. Gradually, you begin arranging things, not to fill every corner immediately, but to understand how the space fits you. You place a chair where the light feels right. Hang a painting at eye level. Little by little, the spaciousness becomes natural. Inner expansion works the same way. When a goal stops being just an idea, when opportunity no longer stands far away, you may feel like you're stepping into a larger version of yourself, not higher than anyone else, not stronger than anyone, just wider than you were yesterday. And inside that wideness, you don't need to rush to fill it with achievements or proof. Sometimes what matters is sitting quietly and noticing your own breath in this new space, recognizing that you're still you, steady, thoughtful, not easily shaken by passing winds. You're not becoming someone else. You're expanding the version that was already there. A version that understands stability doesn't mean standing still. A version that knows growth doesn't have to be loud. A version soft enough to allow change without feeling like it's abandoning its core values. Perhaps this is the next layer of maturity for Taurus. Not just building something solid, but learning to live comfortably inside that solidity. And as you stand in this wider space, looking up at the sky, you may begin to sense that the peace you've been seeking was never about everything staying still forever. It may be about trusting your foundation enough to keep walking forward, even when the sky ahead feels endlessly wide. The moment you realize you're ready is rarely as loud as we imagine. It doesn't always come with a bell ringing or a milestone captured in a photograph. Sometimes, it's simply a quiet feeling inside, like placing your hand on your chest and noticing your heartbeat is steady, even while everything around you is shifting. There's a tenderness in looking back at the road you've already walked, the days you wondered if you were moving slower than everyone else, the times you chose patience instead of chasing whatever sparkled in front of you, the evenings spent alone with plans still unfinished. When you gather those moments together, they form a foundation you're able to stand on today. Perhaps what arrives faster than expected isn't rushing at all. Perhaps you've simply been walking long enough. When you look back, you may see that those steady years were never wasted. Each wait, each adjustment, each time you turned away from the easy shortcut, all of it contributed to what supports you now. But not a perfect foundation, but strong enough that the wind no longer feels threatening. And now, as things begin to move more clearly, it may not be something sudden. It may simply be that you've reached the place you were always walking toward, like a climber moving through fog, step by step, unable to see the peak. And when the clouds finally lift, the view widens, and you realize you've climbed much higher than you once believed. For Taurus, realization doesn't flash like lightning and disappear. It feels more like dawn, light spreading slowly, giving your eyes time to adjust, giving your heart time to understand that a new day has begun. Maybe what matters most isn't how quickly something arrives, but whether you're ready to open the door. Open it not only to opportunities outside, but to the new version of yourself inside, in the version that respects the journey, that no longer judges its own pace so harshly, the version that can smile at something once imagined now taking shape, even if it's still unfinished. And standing at that threshold, have you ever paused to notice how much stronger you've quietly become compared to a few years ago? Has there been a moment when you realized your slowness was never an obstacle, just another way of moving forward? If reflections like this settle somewhere inside you, you might feel drawn to stay connected here, to continue these gentle conversations in the days ahead. For now, let the story rest, like late afternoon light touching a window frame. Unhurried, unforced, just enough to remind you that you are exactly where you need to be.